All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our statewide norming session for December of 2024. Thank you all for being here. We're so excited to have you. Um, go ahead and introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. My name is Xochitl Tirado. I am a full-time DE coordinator at Imperial Valley College, and I'm also a faculty mentor with CVC. And I focus all my attention on CVC on POCR. So that's me, and I'll go ahead and let Maria Elena introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Maria Elena Fernandez, and I'm a full-time DE and instructional design coordinator at College of the Siskiyous, and also a faculty mentor with CVC. And my job is to fully support Sochi and the POCR process.
All right, so I'm going to skip a little bit through our slides because since we're doing introductions, I want to introduce you all to our new Director of Professional Development. He's here with us today, Dr. Garrick Grace. Garrick, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sochi. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Garrick Grace. Prior to this role, I was Dean of Innovation at Merced College. Prior to that, I was an instructional designer at Merced College, and that's where I got my start in terms of the POCR process. So took the POCR training course, then became very familiar with the process, and have been continuing on that journey ever since. Prior to that, I spent about 15 years in the K-12 system, first as a high school social studies teacher. After that, I moved into educational technology because this fantastic thing called the iPad came out, and I just fell in love with how it integrated with teaching and learning, and I've never looked back since. And so really excited to be here, really excited to support this system and this process. It's really exciting work that we're doing, and we'll carry on with that. So thank you so much, Sochi, for inviting me to come today. And so I'll hang out for the first hour, and then I have to hop onto another call. But at any time, don't hesitate to shoot me an email, ggrace@cvc.edu. If you have any questions, concerns on process, anything that we can do to make things better, absolutely reach out to me. I'm always listening ears, and I'm here to support. So thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Garrick. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and rewind a little here on my slides. So first of all, just an overview of the agenda. As some of you may know, oh, I didn't update this. We don't have a college spotlight, sorry. We have a norming topics, no college spotlight, but we do have some topics for POCR leads, and then we'll wrap up. So what we try to do is have this meeting be like the first hour for reviewers and POCR leads, everyone, and then the second hour more focused on POCR leads and what they need. So if any reviewers have to leave the first hour, they're able to get the information and then log off. Our next norming sessions will be March 13th and May 28th, always from 10 to 12. You'll receive an invitation about a month ahead of time so you can start registering for those, just like we did with this one. Okay. As you know, the meeting is being recorded. We do have all of our POCR norming sessions archived. All the recordings are archived. We're currently updating our website. I mean, it's gone through an update already, but we continue to work on that update, especially on the POCR side of the site. So that QR code that I have right there will take you to our YouTube channel where you can find all of the norming sessions stored there. If you ever need to access those norming sessions and you don't have this QR code, just shoot me an email or just support@CVC. That email will get routed to me and I'll send you that direct link. Soon we'll have those recordings back on our POCR site so that they live in a place where everybody can access them pretty easily. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our norming topics. Before we do, I do have like some awesome news. So just yesterday, I was counting to see how many local POCR certified colleges we have. We are at 88. And the reason I counted is because we had 2 new colleges just become local POCR certified just on Friday and then yesterday. So that's why I was like, oh, let me count and see how many we have. So we are at 88 local POCR certified colleges, and that's thanks to all the work that you guys have done. I also need to give a shout out to the previous team. As you know, CVC, it's a grant, things change, faces change, but those of us that have been doing this for a while, we remember from the beginning when this all started. And to know that we're at 88 colleges right now, that is a really big deal. So I want to thank you all for your support. I think it's so important for all of us as POCR leads and POCR reviewers. It's important to note that we really truly care about this and we believe in this. And it's important that we all keep, the standards high, and using, what we have as a rubric right now and coming to these sessions and, just having conversations about course design and, appropriate course design, and, the rubric helps us to do that. So anyway, 88 local POCR certified college, that is awesome. I just wanted to celebrate that for, a minute at least here in our session. Okay, so now we can move on to our norming topics. So we're going to focus on a few topics. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And the first thing I want to talk about is feedback. So we have different places in the rubric that talk about feedback, when students will get feedback from us, how we hear from our students, all those things. So that's what I'm going to focus on right now. Okay, so the first area that I want to point out that on our rubric that talks about feedback is A11, the learner feedback survey. So for reviewers, I think that this is a pretty easy one to say okay, it's aligned or it's not aligned, because this is one that it's there or it's not there. So it's pretty black and white. But what we're looking for is opportunity to give anonymous feedback. And we do want to make sure that it is anonymous, because sometimes, especially if it's a Canvas survey, which usually it is, you want to make sure that they have checked off that it is anonymous, to the instructor regarding course design and our course content at the end of the course. So that's all we're looking for, something at the end of the course, an anonymous survey that does ask students questions about the course design and the course content. So we're looking for it at the end of the course. It has to be an anonymous survey. It can be short answer, rating, mixed questions. So you can have any of those different types of surveys. That's what we're looking for. And then for this one to be exemplary, again, pretty simple. We're looking for it in the midterm. So a midterm survey and a final, end of course survey. So that one is pretty straightforward and simple, but that is a way that we do get that instructors. So as reviewers, we're looking for it, but then as instructors, that's the feedback we're looking for to hopefully improve our courses, and take what the student tells us and really make some changes. Any questions on A11? I think that one's pretty simple. If you do, just drop them in the chat, or, you're welcome to raise your hand. Okay. So then let me move on to the next one on feedback specifically. C7 is learner feedback. And here we're looking for that the course design include a clear description of how meaningful, timely feedback on assessments will be provided. So where are we going to look for this? In the syllabus, in the orientation module, or even within assignments. So what we're looking for is students need to know when they're going to receive that feedback. Like, after I submit a grade, when will I hear back? So that's what we're looking for. And then how do they do this? A clearly articulated description for the student that explains how timely, meaningful feedback will be provided and how students can access it. And I think that's something important for us to kind of keep in mind, is that we want to make sure that students know how to get that feedback, because at times that can be challenging in a course for the students. So there's so many different places, they go to the grades section, and then they can see our comment. But then if it's a essay, for example, that they submitted, they'll have to click on it, open it to look at the at the comments within that essay. So it's important that as reviewers, we tell faculty, you really have to give explicit, detailed information on how they find the feedback. It's not enough to just give it to them. Okay. Oh, and then I have the exemplary part here. A clear description, clear instructions on accessing feedback and guidance on applying feedback to improve learning and performance. So that's going a little bit beyond. It's not just giving them the feedback, but giving them like, this is how you're going to improve upon when I give you this feedback. So that's our exemplary section. Okay, so now the next one is C8, self-assessment. So here we're looking for course design allows several opportunities for student self-assessment with feedback. These assessments require students to reflect on their progress and adjust goals and learning strategies and identify areas of improvement. So we're looking here for low stakes practice quizzes that allow multiple attempts, short reflection assignments. So as a reviewer, I feel that C8 is a little bit trickier to find because essentially C8 could be an assignment. But the assignment has to have the opportunity to for feedback. And what I really like is like these two things must be true for alignment. I think those are key. And you guys, this information I'm pulling right out of the course design resources, course 837, I think we call it, or maybe I'm looking at the, 837.
Yes. Helen put the link. Thank you very much, Helen, by the way. She put the link to that in the chat. So it's right there.
Yeah. So don't forget that we have that resource, and like, that is so important. So I love this note on the two things that have to be that's okay, Helen. I just saw your comment. That's fine. Two things have to be true for alignment. So it has to be a method of providing instructor feedback must be built into the self-assessment activity. And there should be a minimum of 3 opportunities in a full 16-week course. 2 is sufficient for 8-week courses. And the opportunities can either be content-based or metacognitive. It's not required for both. So I think those two things must be treated. That's key. So we want to make sure, and so C8 is here for many reasons I can imagine, but like one example is a course that's very well designed, but only has like these multiple choice quizzes. We want to make sure that there is a variety of assignments, and I think C8 provides that. C8 allows us to have an assignment built into our course that allows us as instructors to give the student feedback. So I do feel like C8 as a reviewer, it's a little bit trickier to look at. Like the other ones that I presented earlier, it's like, okay, it's end of the semester survey. Like I see it, check. This one may take a little bit more digging to find because you're looking in so many different places to find that. Any questions before I move on?
Sergio has one called, how many would you include in an 8-week course?
So according to our, the resources that we have, the recommendation is 2 in an 8-week course. At least 3 opportunities. Is that what I read? Yeah, 3 opportunities
Yes,
in a
that's correct.
16-week course, 2 in an 8-week course. Yeah, that's what the guidelines are.
I think the spirit also of this, so if I can just add on here, the spirit of this particular element is for the instructor and the student to have an opportunity to check in with their learning, for you to provide personalized resources or comments or feedback or anything that will connect you to that student's progress and let the student reflect on what it is they might need to do better, to increase their engagement or their performance in the class or their mastery of the content. So really just, wherever you can think about that, wherever it's appropriate. I mean, I would say there are numbers we think about, but if you think it's appropriate, every week to check in, then that's the instructor's purview. You just want to be careful of like overloading your students with with too much extra stuff to do. But really, it's not a bad thing to check in with your students. So
Right. That's exactly it. Okay,
and
I'm gonna go, oh, go ahead.
and they can be extra credit, they can be no credit, they can be auto credit, they can be, you know, the creativity of the instructor in this is really what we don't want to lose focus on. You have a way of engaging those students, then that's what you can use. And as reviewers, we're challenged to sort of look and see how that's being done, and to be open to the multiple possibilities that instructors have for checking in with their students and for allowing students to check in. Helen has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Helen.
Are you, you're going to regret letting me come to these things. One thing I used to always mention to people, though, if they make it extra credit, it tends to have a somewhat limiting effect on students that already feel overburdened, and yet those are often the very students that we kind of need to check in with and find where their gaps might be. So just be encouraging your faculty to think about extra credit tends to motivate those that are already on top of it and doing well. Yeah. And it's the other students we really want to check in with. So just keep that in mind.
Good point, Helen. And no, we won't regret. We will never regret inviting you to these. We need your voice. Yeah. So all of that, I agree with. It's an opportunity for us, for the student to check in, and for us to be able to check in with them as well. So it just provides. It provides that, but what I was thinking, I had lost my train of thought for a second. What I was thinking is for leads, especially POCR leads, or whatever your college process is to get faculty ready for course design, this is something that needs to be built in there. Like, we need to make sure that faculty understand this self-assessment and what it means. So that's why that faculty preparation piece is so important, because we want to make sure that things like C8 are in that faculty preparation so that they understand this is the spirit behind creating an assignment like this. That's what I wanted to say. And I see Lee.
Yes, thank you. So can this assessment be extra credit?
So they can be extra credit, right, Maria Elena?
That they could be, but as Helen mentioned earlier, that sometimes extra credit can be an additional barrier or additional burden to students who may already be sort of stressed out or wanting to do better. So I think that there are probably other ways to do that in addition to extra credit, but sometimes just a short check-in that's low stakes, no stakes, 0 credit, or auto credit maybe sometimes is less burdensome on the student, so they don't really have to think about it. But
and when we say quizzes, when you say practice quiz, low stake, do you actually have to label them as practice quiz, or just the weekly quiz is sufficient?
I can maybe speak to this, but anyone else can pop in. But I think that the idea of a low stakes practice quiz with multiple attempts is maybe it's a form of self-assessment, because you're allowing students to check their learning. But I think also, in addition to that, we want to make sure we allow students to reflect on their learning. What are they doing well? What's a muddiest point? What do they need more help on? Where do they feel their gaps are? Or what didn't they get this week? And there's all kinds of great stuff going on in the chat, but I'm speaking right now, so I can't do both. But yes, so I would say that the practice quiz, you can include a 0-point question in a practice quiz that maybe allows students to reflect. But the key to the practice quiz is that you need to make sure that you are engaged in that that the instructor, you are engaged, so that when the students complete that practice quiz, it's not just a done thing. You go in and you check that last question, because that's the question you want the information on. And so I think it's okay to use practice quizzes, but there are maybe other types of assignments that might get your attention as an instructor better, might keep your attention.
I guess I would just look at it as 2 different things. One is the quiz to test the content of what they're learning, versus asking them about their process of learning. So to me, those are two different things. So the self-assessment kind of a little bit confusing the way that I read right now. So, but okay, so I think I clear up now. So I will keep it as separate. One is reflection on process and one is the actual quiz itself. Thank you.
And let's just running through this. Homework pass, yes. Okay, those are great suggestions in the chat. Thank you. Graded survey, ungraded survey, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Brandon, time management, yes. All those topics, Leslie, absolutely. And they can be built in the weekly quizzes as long as we're making sure that as instructors, we're checking on those and answering those or responding to that student specifically in that assignment that you just gave them. So.
And this is, I think, as a reviewer, again, this is the challenge with C8
Mhm.
is that it can happen in different places. And, you know, it may be just one question on a quiz. And, you know, what if we missed that quiz? Like we didn't look at it. So this is maybe one where like a conversation with the course author, you know, is necessary. Like maybe it'll be marked as incomplete because, you know, I didn't see it when I reviewed the course, but you know, having a conversation with the instructor, you know, and explaining what C8 is, maybe they'll be like, but wait a second, like I have, you know, these questions every so often that they can reflect on, and I am engaged in that reflection. So for reviewers, I just feel that C8 is hard to identify sometimes because it can happen in so many places. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to now I'm going to talk a little bit about auto-generated feedback. So, you know, there's so many things going on with AI, like, you know, it just seems like we get a hold of something and then something new comes along. And I guess that's just the way the world works. So, so a few things about auto-generated AI. So we want to make sure that we're aware of the RSI guidelines and feedback. And what I'm referring to that is with the new ACCJC rubric, like that, you know, it's important for us to kind of have that on the in the back of our mind because it affects all of us. So it is, I'm going to say that it is okay to use auto-generated feedback, but only when it's complemented with what I call real feedback. And real feedback is feedback from us. So auto-generated feedback is not enough. Like we can't just have a course where the feedback to the student is 100% auto-generated, you know, and not just auto-generated, but also auto-generated through AI. So I'm talking about like two different kinds of things. So auto-generated is like the feedback that we have on our quizzes, right? Like we create a quiz, and then when I'm creating that quiz, I add feedback. Like if they get it right, this is the feedback. And if they get it wrong, this is the feedback. So as they're completing the quiz, then they get, you know, the quiz feedback that I created, but it's just there. It's there. I don't have to do anything as an instructor. It's okay to use that in quizzes as long as I'm giving feedback in other areas. So I think maybe my subject is easier because I teach English. So in English, there's a lot of opportunities for feedback because of all the essays that are written. Like those essays, I give them my real feedback, like nothing's auto-generated about that. So I have a balance. So that's okay. That's what I'm referring to in this particular slide. So talking about AI, some of the things that we have to be aware of, and again, you know, we're still learning about so many of these things, and we, you know, haven't really gotten a hold of maybe some colleges do have guidelines already. They're like way ahead of the curve and, you know, things like this. But things to consider is student privacy, use data protocols tools. So like when we're using, for example, an AI tool to generate feedback, we may be putting students' work into that tool. So we have to be aware of student privacy and how is that affected. Complement USAI to complement the human feedback, as I mentioned. It's important for us to be transparent. So if AI is being used for grading, to tell the student that it's being graded. Again, these are just ideas, you guys, that I wanted to bring up for you to kind of consider. It's a big topic. Regularly audit AI tools for accuracy, fairness, and potential bias. Monitor and adjust, continuously monitor and adjust AI tools based on student outcomes and feedback. So again, these are just ideas. I just went out and did some research and have attended so many AI things. I will talk later about the rubric revision, and AI is a component that we're going to be looking at in the rubric revision. So anyway, just some ideas, but just what I want to say, purely auto-generated feedback in a course is not okay. We need to complement that with our own real feedback. Monica, go ahead.
Yes, when we're reviewing a course, it's not always obvious that they're using AI for feedback generation. So is it enough to say, okay, for quizzes, if you have auto-generated, just go in and make sure that you can complement whatever you automatically have. For assignments, you can use the comments library and then individualize that. And just a note of attention, don't just use an AI generated feedback and just plug that in without you're adding yourself. Is that sort of enough to try to cover that point?
I mean, in reality, I think it is, unless Marilena, you have a different idea. I think professional development is key. It is key here in this topic, but because you're right, Monica, like we don't know. We're looking at course design. So we're looking at a course that was created that's going to be delivered, it's going to be, given in this. So what we're looking for is like that, when you email me, I'll get back to you in 48 hours. You're gonna, be hearing from me, through announcements. I will be grading your work and you're gonna be getting feedback within 7 days of you submitting the assignment. Like that's all there's not gonna be like anywhere that says like, oh yes, I use AI and purely AI. You'll never get feedback from me. Like you're never gonna hear from me ever again, student. Like we're not gonna see that, right? So I think that, Monica, like what you're saying is enough. And again, I think that faculty preparation, ongoing professional development for everyone, and thank goodness we do have a system that supports us. Like we do have the webinars, we have a lot of statewide things that these conversations occur in that, but, just trying to keep faculty as informed as possible. But like if you do see an instance of a course where there's no like mention of, you will hear back from me, like, after 7 days, 10 days, 14 days of you submitting the assignment, I will give you feedback. But I think like you said, Monica, like just telling instructors like, hey, it's cool, like to use that auto-generated quiz feedback. Like, yes, you should do that. But just, remember that we also need to be able to give feedback in other places in the course.
So if I can add just a tiny bit on that, Elena has a comment about how can we determine if instructors use it? We really can't, but I mean, we can't. There's no way we can do that. However, as reviewers, what we should key into is a clear communication policy, looking at those assignment instructions, that the text within there, is there a clear statement on when and how feedback will be given? Is there ways for students to access? If we look at the course module and all we see is, the traditional read the chapter, look at the PowerPoint, take the quiz, and then we look at those quizzes, and those quizzes are all course pack uploaded with, the traditional auto-generated feedback where it's the same answer if you get it right or wrong. It just tells you what page to look at, so we've all seen those quizzes, we've all seen them. So, and I think we're looking probably as reviewers for the obvious gaps in feedback, because there is no way that we can tell, with any certainty. But but I think I would just add that, that every campus will have its own AI policy. So I think that it's important that instructors are aware of their own campus AI policies if they have them. If they don't have them, then that's something that their local senates should probably consider. Or yes, there is no policy yet, Jennifer. You're right. We're in the process of refining and developing our own as we speak, because everything keeps evolving. So the original soft statement now needs to become a little more specific. So, but those are conversations that the Senate is having, and they're good conversations. And then there are also conversations that your local POCR team should be having, that you should be thinking about these things, and what do we look for, and how can we provide instructors with the resources and support they need to consider how to give feedback in the most meaningful way. So that's
Yeah.
just those are my thoughts on that.
Okay, we are going to move forward, and the next topic that we're going to cover today is rubrics and frequency. And Marilena, I'll take care of the chat while and I'll advance the slides if that's okay.
Oh, thank you, because I don't think I can do that. Okay, so we're moving on to the topic of rubrics, and I love rubrics for a lot of reasons. One of the great things about rubrics is that they really allow you to identify those areas that are specific to the outcomes you are trying to reach in your assignment or in your activity. And it's a clear way to map back to those unit objectives, but also back to those larger learning outcomes in the course. So rubrics really let you pinpoint where students need to improve, and where they're doing really well. So when we're looking at C5, we're looking for either the actual rubric tool that the instructor has used, or we're looking for extremely clear descriptive criteria for what we're looking for in the assignment and what will allow students to demonstrate that they've achieved those particular outcomes. So as long as we see those somewhere and that they're clearly available to the student, because sometimes we see that they're located in a module somewhere, but they're not necessarily located with the assignment, and then students have to go back and forth. So we see lots of variations of that idea. So in those cases, we'd be giving feedback like, hey, let's put that in with the assignment. Let's do other things. So there are ways that we can help our instructors either get that criteria to their students in a timely manner, or to actually train them or help them to use the rubric tool, because it's can be awkward for both students and instructors to have to have a rubric on the outside that they're trying to grade all these papers with or their assignments with. So if your instructors aren't using the rubrics tool, then that's a great area for professional development at your local campus, is to train your instructors how to use the Canvas rubrics tools. Some of you might also be using outcomes within Canvas, or some other form of assessment that's taking place in Canvas. So rubrics will also become an important tool in that. You might also be using the Mastery Gradebook. There's a lot of different ways that rubrics function. So as reviewers, we're going to be looking at the obvious places. We're going to be looking at assessments. We're going to be looking at quizzes can have rubrics attached to them, assignments, and we're looking for that clear grading criteria. So again, check that text box, check to see that there's, this is what the quiz is, this are the instructions, this is how it's going to be graded, this is how you're going to get feedback. This is what we're looking for. This is how you could be successful. Is it open book? Is it no book? Is it? So how can a student be successful, and how are they going to get that information? How are they going to know? So the rubrics tool, it's not required, but it really is a time saver for the instructors. And most of the time when I'm working with instructors, and if they're not using rubrics, I mention the rubric tool, and then I show them a demo like, hey, this is how you can use it. And their eyes get wider, and they're like, I had no idea. I'm like, okay, all right, yes. So then we move forward, and then then they have to learn how to build the rubric, and it becomes a whole professional development hour with them in terms of the rubric tool. So we're looking also, in that exemplary mode, if you want to push your instructors to maybe go a little further, look for that models of good work. And a lot of instructors forget to include models of good work. I would often tap my students and ask them, before they left the class, they said, hey, I really like this essay. May I have permission to use it? I'll redact your name, whatever you wish. And the student normally says, absolutely, you can use my stuff as a model. And that helps because then you create a library of models, based on student work throughout the semesters that you've been teaching. And then you can choose and pick, or you can have a little gallery, or there's a lot of ways that you can show students, this is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of thing that I'm doing. So rubrics, in general, rubrics are amazing, and they allow us to assist our students and provide that targeted feedback that's really important for their mastery of content and objectives. Are there any questions?
I don't see any in the chat, so I'll
Okay.
go ahead and move on.
All right, next one. Frequency. This is C4. This is an interesting one to me because there are lots of different ideas on what constitutes work in a week or in a weekly module. But if we go back to sort of the roots of all of this, which is the Title V language around all of this now, and there are clear, specific directions in Title V on what frequency looks like. There are also your local BPs and APs, which have also been probably updated to reflect the new Title V language around RSI. So that should probably have already happened a while ago, but that sometimes doesn't translate down to what we're doing in the classroom or how we're training our instructors. But what we're looking for are the regular and consistent opportunities. So if you've got a weekly module, right, a module that's the duration is 1 week, think about all the possible things that you could be doing with your students in that week. Even if it's face-to-face or on campus, what would you be doing and what are the expectations out of class? The same type of time commitment should follow, right? In the online environment, you're going to have some content, you're going to have activities, you're going to have group projects, group work, you're going to have expectations for outside work. So there's things to think about in terms of the frequency. And again, we're looking for that regular and consistent opportunity for the student to say, I got it. I did it. These are my objectives. Did I hit this one? Well, and I'm going to give you regular feedback to say, you know what, try it, not quite. Let's, redo it or resubmit it. So opportunities to demonstrate knowledge and understanding in the formative and summative environments, because we want students to be able to practice that. And we also want them to be able to demonstrate that they got it, right? We need to be able to measure that outcome either at the end. So the formative and summative, including both of those in a module, some people, they think, it's so much, but it doesn't have to be huge, right? It doesn't have to be a giant summative assignment. It could be a quick summative assignment that focuses on one objective or one element of what you're trying to accomplish. So look for ways that instructors are asking their students to practice, discuss, think about, share, reflect, build, whatever. And then look also for those summative assignments, either final reflection or, summary exam, whatever it happens to be, or short something. And then look in the module content always. We're looking at these modules where that's really what we have access to. So we have access to other things, but if I had to go digging around in an instructor's files to find something that's not in the module content, the student's not going to do that either. They're not going to do that unless you specifically direct them. And then that's another issue. But I wanted to say that for me, this element connects with the substantive interaction rubric element A in the ACCJC rubric. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at that rubric, or if you haven't spent some time looking at that rubric, it's pretty straightforward in terms of what they're expecting, and it hasn't really deviated from the Title V roots very much at all. So that their statement is that the instructor, right? And they're very clear that AI is not an instructor. So the ACCJ says AI is not an instructor. You are. So consistently provides meaningful comments on most of the coursework and assignments, including the constructive feedback and improvements needed to increase the content mastery. So can AI do that? Probably, but they're looking for you. They're looking for your opportunity. You are doing this. And I'm not quite sure how how ACCJC is going to tell if we can't tell, but but that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But I do want to say though that looking for the consistent opportunity where you could provide that feedback is what we're looking for as reviewers. Okay, so
there is a question, Maria Elena. Don't you think formative assessments can accomplish opportunities for self-assessments?
yeah, yes. I
Yes.
think that would be a yes.
Yes, they can.
And formative assessments for me are ways that students can sort of try out, practice, or scaffold, maybe your scaffolding activities that build into the final activity. So there's a lot of different ways that formative assessments can function. So yes, they can be self-assessment. They can absolutely do that. So
Agree.
okay.
Lindsay,
I
we
know.
agree.
I know. I think about that a lot, actually. I'm like, All right. Anyway, but we're going to move on now to, just in case you didn't know about Title V, I just thought I'd put it up there that basically they're looking for the regular interaction, and they say it is ensured by these two things, right? It's not an or, it's two things, right? You have to provide the opportunity. And again, when we're reviewers, we're looking for that too. We're looking for the opportunity. Does it exist in the module, the opportunity, right? Because we can't tell, I'm not going to look at your feedback. There's no student data in there. So, but does the opportunity exist? And that's, as a reviewer, you'll get a feel for that. Like, yep, wow, that's cool. Look how they did that. Or yeah, they did, or they're using announcements with the reply thing. I mean, there's a lot of different ways for us to be thoughtful about how we're doing that. But it's not just the opportunity, but it's predictable and scheduled. And that's where the idea of the module content comes in, right? It's predictable because it's happening in the weekly thing, and it's scheduled because there's a due date and available date and whatever. And then the number two is that we're monitoring that student engagement and success, that we're taking the time to think about how they're, not just that we built this course, but how are our students engaging in that course, and how are they mastering the content, and how are we adjusting our course to the feedback that we're being given by our students. So the regular and substantive interaction, that D is whatever, but E is also an interesting way for us to consider the idea of instructional time, right? In the context of that weekly module. So if we're making stuff available, we have to make sure that our students are demonstrating engagement. So if there's nothing but one single assignment in a week, that's not enough. That would be the equivalent of me sitting in a 3-hour lecture class for 3 hours, and then at the end taking a little quiz before I walked out the door on Friday, or whatever that day is. So that really wouldn't be, that wouldn't be very effective. I wouldn't. None of us probably would enjoy that class. Maybe we would, but maybe we wouldn't. But we do have to make sure that we're demonstrating engagement. And the only way we do that in an asynchronous class is to demonstrate different activities throughout that are scattered throughout the learning content, or at the end of the module, or wherever we're placing them. So, okay, that's the Title V stuff. Now we're moving on.
All right.
Unless there's questions.
I don't see any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on then. So we're going to now do our small group discussion so that you guys can talk about a few things in a smaller group, and then we'll come back to the bigger group and kind of have a little share out. I'm going to go ahead and drop this link in the chat. This is a link to just a Google Doc with this that I have on the slide, because once I put you in groups, you won't have it. So if you can click on that link, that way you have the instructions for the small group discussion. Anna, before I move on, go ahead.
Thanks, Sochi. So in this discussion, we've talked a lot about the number of activities that we would expect students to be able to do in a week. And I've thought a lot about the difference between an in-person on-ground class versus in asynchronous class. And sometimes we put a lot more activities in an asynchronous class because in a real person, like on ground class, let's say, there you're walking around, you're discussing things with students, and you may not be grading those activities, but you're doing them. So I'm wondering if another way we can do this also in an asynchronous environment would be to create formative assessments, but not necessarily for a grade, and do this as like practice activities, complete and complete. And would that also suffice for the number of activities that we're doing within, the week period?
That's a great question. I feel like that there's a lot, again, there's no one right way to approach this, and we as reviewers need to be keyed into the types of things that provide potential for engagement for us to step in. Because when you mention walking around, you're not just wandering around like a swan. You are actually you're actually getting in, sitting in with a group and chatting and providing some feedback. You're doing other things. So as long as the students can talk amongst themselves and do their thing, but if you're not there, then you're not providing that meaningful or the meaningful feedback to help keep them on track. So I totally, yes, it doesn't have to be graded, but again, you need to be present in that. The instructor should be present. So there's that idea. And I also feel like there are other ways we should be looking at. If a campus has approved communication tools, if they have ways that students can interact with each other in different ways, if they have group projects, if they have things that are happening maybe in the background that we can't see, but we know that it's an opportunity. Like you've said, okay, you're going to have the next 3 weeks, you're working on this group project. So go, and I can pop in. If you use Pronto, they've got groups there, and you can pop in as the instructor in Pronto, and you can kind of check in on your groups. They can, there's lots of engagement tools and lots of ways to do this. So just as a reviewer, be open to the possibility that instructors are going to be trying things and doing things. And if it's meeting the spirit, then I want to say honor the instructor's intuition in this and let them try it. And if they're going to get feedback on whether it works or not from their students. So hopefully.
And I also want to say that we didn't cover this today, but we do have C3 variety. And I think that looks different in every class, right?
Mm-hmm.
The variety. So what we're trying to do with variety is we don't just want, again, like only quizzes, or we don't want a midterm and a final, and that's it. Like that's the only opportunities you have. So I think with the comment, with the question, it's like, yeah, we want to have variety, and it's going to look different in every class. We don't want to have a bunch of credit, no credit, like only credit, no credit. That's like, but variety within all of those opportunities that we can give our students to practice. I think, there has to be a balance, and that's going to look different in every class. And, that's the thing with course design. Like it's like course design, it takes so much work, like nobody outside of the people doing the work understand how much work it takes, and reviewing is the same. It just takes so much time to review a course and to give that feedback and to make sure that these areas are aligned. So, and it is a course by course basis. It really is. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pop back up this slide, our small group discussion. And again, I'll drop that link one more time in the chat. You guys should all be able to open that link. So that's the instructions that I have up here. So you're going to get in small groups. First, introduce yourself to the group. I don't think I've ever added that part to our small group. Share how long you've been a reviewer. Take 2 minutes just to consider how you approach a course review. Use the following questions to get started, then take turns sharing with your group. So some things I want you guys to consider. What are the first elements you look for as a reviewer? As a reviewer, you get a course, what are the first things you look for? What helps make the review process more efficient or effective? Are there specific rubric elements or tips you find particularly useful to share with course developers? So I just want you guys to have a conversation about reviews. How do you approach reviews? Do you have like any pro tips to share with other reviewers? Like, you know what, when I get a course, I do like these 3 things and that helps me, you know, to get this review accomplished. So that's the idea behind it. I'm going to put you guys in small groups and I'll leave you guys there for about 10 minutes and then I'll bring you back. And we'll have a short discussion and then we'll take a little break to move on to the next part. So let me just automatically, and we're going to do maybe that many. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open them. And again, don't forget to click that link. I'll drop it again. All right, they're open. All right, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you all had a good conversation in your little breakout room. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna ask for volunteers. Like, does anyone have want to share something that you guys talked about, something you learned, some great tip? You can raise your hand, unmute yourself, drop it in the chat, whatever. Whatever way you want to communicate works with us.
Thanks, Deborah.
Hey, can I just jump in, Sochi?
Yes, please do.
Sorry, I'm flickering on my camera, so I turned it off. But the group that I was in, great group, they talked about starting from A1 and kind of going from there and reviewing the information and going through some of the accessibility items as well as they're going through it. So a lot of good tools because I think as we start a POCR review, we look at all of the sections and we're like, okay, where do we start? A1. And then do we look at some of those other sections and trying to remain focused on that? So that's what I wanted to add. And the group could jump in if they'd like. So
Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Cynthia.
Hi, I'm also having a camera issue.
That's okay.
Sorry. My terrific group, several people in the group talked about how very helpful it was to have an inventory or repository of feedback for each of the areas of the sections, or even better, model feedback that they could share with reviewers on certain things. And I, since we are not quite local POCR certified yet, so very close, but.
So close.
So close, Sochi. You're gonna be hearing from me very
Yes.
soon, I hope. Yeah, that was, you know, we haven't started reviewing general faculty yet, just the courses that our POCR team has put forth. So this makes a lot of sense for us, and I'll be telling my group this very soon, that we need to be keeping examples of really good feedback so that when we move forward, there will be sort of a place to refer to about those things. So I thought that was amazing. Yeah, and that was the main thing that I got out of it, that it was really helpful.
Thank you, Cynthia. Leslie, go ahead.
Hi, we talked about how when we review, we talked about starting with section D and then giving the feedback to the instructor so that they could make all the fixes. And while they're working on that, then we can check A through C. So that gives us time, as opposed to, okay, give us time, we're going to do A through C and it looks beautiful. And then, oh, by the way, just did D, boom, here's 100 things you have to fix. So we talked about doing it backward. And we also, of course, complained about funding, and we have no funding. And that's just such a massive issue. But yeah,
Yes.
so start
yes.
with section D.
Marilena, can I have you drop the survey in the chat just in case people have to step away, they can let's fill out the survey and then step away, hopefully. All right, Jude, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what Leslie said, because our group also had the same suggestion, but it also, the folks who were doing it that way, they were doing the accessibility review first before it ever even went for the A through C review. And they felt like that allowed the A through C reviewers to really focus on that and not be distracted by potential accessibility issues that they spotted. And they found that process to be helpful.
Nice. And I think the way that we approach reviews also depends on the makeup of our team, right?
Mhm.
Like if you as a reviewer are doing A through D, if you have people doing D only, like that makes a big difference. So but I think it's interesting to like talk to each other and just get ideas. Like I just feel like that's very powerful. Powerful. Elena, go ahead.
I would like to thank our group. You know, we are very novice in our college, in Riverside City College. We're learning step by step, but so people in my group are experienced. They had at least 5 years of doing this job. And I did take notes, the accessibility important, initial so training important, organization. And I did specifically ask what is the beginning of the entire process. Okay, do we divide by 3 modules to start with, orientation and 3 modules? And there are different approaches. Some people do review everything, and some people do suggest to start with 3 modules and orientation plus accessibility. So great tips. I would like to thank everybody who listened to all my questions. I've been asking all those questions. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad. I'm glad that was helpful. All right. Any last one more? Okay, then I will go ahead and close out this part of the norming session. I again want to thank everyone for participating, for going to your breakout rooms, for having a conversation. And I want to remind everyone that that like I am by no means an expert. Maria Elena is, and I'm sorry, Maria Elena, not that you're not very knowledgeable, but neither of us are no means an expert. Like Maria Elena and I talk to each other all the time of like, you know, like I got this question, like, what do you think? And we brainstorm together. And I even ask other reviewers, like, you know, from across the state. None of us, I feel are, you know, experts in everything, but collectively together, you know, we certainly are, you know, have a lot of knowledge. So just know that Maria Elena and I are, you know, currently at the CVC, and, you know, that gives us the ability of you guys, you know, to send us emails and stuff. But you guys, you know, as colleagues, you know, it's important to make those connections and, you know, to have those people that you can turn to. So, you know, don't forget that we are a resource, like collectively together are a resource. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys like I want to say 10 minutes, and I'm going to say 10 minutes, a 10-minute break for those of you that are staying for the second half. I know we ran a little behind. I knew we were, just because we had so much to talk about. And then when we come back, we're going to have some conversations for POCR leads. But if you're a reviewer and want to come back, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Oh, Maria Elena has some.
Before you leave, if you want to save the chat, because that was a comment, there's you should see the vertical dots, or actually they're horizontal, 3 horizontal dot menu at the very top of the chat. And if you click it and it says more, then it says save chat, and you can save the chat. It'll download it to a file to your computer, because people mentioned that there were some great resources that they wanted to share. So just wanted to say that.
All right, so if you have to go, I thank you for coming to this session, but if you can stay, please do, because we have other fun stuff to share. And I'll start again at 11:20. Okay, so if you need a bio break or just
please, please take a moment to fill out the survey if you do have to leave.
All right, welcome back to the second part of our norming session. Let's see, hold on, sorry, I have to get on my screens. Oh, and that's my alarm. Yeah, okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen again, and then I'll get started. Okay, there we go. We're running a little bit behind, as you can see from my slide. but that's okay. We'll get through all the information that we have coming up next. Okay, so because this is more, this part of the session is more really more for POCR leads. You're going to see a lot of more POCR lead type information being shared. So I wanted to take a minute to remind everyone, what should POCR look like in a local POCR certified campus? And please keep in mind that POCR does look different in every campus, but this is what I'm going to present next is just overall what should be happening in some way at your campus. If you're local POCR certified, and if you're not, if you're working your way towards local POCR certification, then these are the things to look out for. Okay, so your campus should have a POCR lead, and the POCR lead can be a variety of people. More often I see faculty, DE coordinators, if you have them, sometimes instructional designers. So it's a variety of people that fill this role. We want the team to be trained, the review team. You have to have a review team that is trained. By trained, I mean they should have completed the POCR course. And the reviewer also should ideally complete that POCR course. The one that shows you how to review a course, how to make comments, what to look for. So that's what we consider a trained team. Adoption of the CVC course design rubric. Senate approval, even better. So if you can get Senate approval for adopting the rubric at your campus and using that as the rubric that is used to review online courses, that's one thing, another thing that needs to be done. We want a faculty prep course, and by faculty, I mean the course authors of the course. I think that's really important. And in campuses, it looks really different. In some campuses, it's required. In other campuses, it's optional. You know, required, of course, is ideal because we want, when faculty build a course, we want them to have some sort of idea of what they are building and why they are building it. Why do they have to include like these self-assessments? Why do they have to include language that tells the student that this is when they will get their feedback? So faculty prep course, and a lot of us that have this, that's built in our campus, we use the rubric to kind of guide that course. So we build courses from the rubric, and there's a variety of POCR leads that probably have their own type of course that they have faculty complete. And then, of course, you need to have a course review process with your review team, a process that reviews section A through D, including D. It is our responsibility to review D, and then to include any language in your review that includes your accessibility tools. So all of us have different accessibility tools at our disposal. Most of us have, oh my goodness, what's it called? The one that the chancellor's office.
Pope Tech.
Thank you, Pope Tech. All of us have Pope Tech, and if you don't have it, just shoot us an email and we can get you information on how to get that installed in your campus, because that's included for all of the colleges. But other colleges have things like Tidy Up, but like Pope Tech.
Ally, yeah, there's Ally, there's You Do It, there's any number. So if you have more than one tool, that's great. There's also the Canvas accessibility checker. So there's multiple sort of windows into accessibility. So,
and my recommendation is that your process for reviewing should include all of the tools you have. Some tools don't catch some things, like they'll complement each other. Like at the end, you'll get a better idea of what needs to be fixed. So I highly recommend including language in your review process that says like, these are the tools we have. And I also think that it's important to have the faculty, the course authors, be the ones using those tools to check their course. You know, your reviewers will have to do it anyway, but it's nice for them to do it. That way they can hopefully fix any broken links, any like simple stuff like the headings, the images, alt text, and things like that. Anyway, and then you also your process has to include how is feedback going to be given? And is there going to be time to make edits and corrections? So what does that look like? That should be part of your process. And then I highly recommend, besides these statewide norming sessions, I recommend you have norming sessions for your review team. And then ongoing PD for faculty. This is a recommendation. The last two are recommendations. So, well, the norming session one, when you become local POCR certified, you are supposed to be attending these sessions along with your review team, at least 2 of these sessions a year. That's what we ask for. But if you can have local ones, then that's even better. But the last one, PD for faculty ongoing, that is a recommendation. You know, but it is a good one because just like we talked about, like with RSI and AI and all of these different things, you know, it's important to keep faculty that teach DE courses in the loop of what's going on, if any changes, if anything that they need to pay attention to. Any questions on this, or are there any questions in the chat, Maria Elena, related to this?
I'm just looking at one that just people linking resources. There was a question about having a repository of faculty prep process courses, and we didn't have one at the time. We don't have one that I know of, but we do have the course design resources course, which Tracy linked. And then Jennifer said she could make a template based on those currently used. Would everyone be interested in that? So,
oh, Jennifer, I'm going to make a note and I'll contact you
great.
offline so we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
So as I've mentioned before, we did go through a process of revising our POCR site, and the resources are there's resources still missing, and we're aware of that. So our goal is to work towards getting more resources in that site for things like this, like, you know, share, you know, your faculty prep course, you know, share your process, things like that. So we're working towards that, but we're trying to be very mindful of how that's shared, and making sure that it's current and it stays up to date. That's one of the challenges. And Jeanette, yes, the recording for September 16th is available. I will be sharing the link to that in a few more slides. Okay, any other questions in the chat or out of the chat about the process for POCR reviews or POCR certification?
Good comments. Sochi, in the interest of time, do we want to do the second breakout session, or do you want?
Go ahead.
Or do you want to just move on?
Yeah, I think we're just going to move on.
Perfect. Okay.
But what I will just mention this. I will just mention that one of the things we want to do is talk about, and we're not going to put you in breakouts again because I feel like we just came from breakouts, but the goal of this was to discuss local norming sessions. And do you have your own local norming sessions at your college? And if so, like, we wanted things like how often, how are they structured, who leads them, what topics are discussed. If you don't have these, like, you know, just think about the benefits. How might you go about creating or offering your first one? So if I can just, instead of putting this in small groups, I'd like to just take a few moments just to talk within, there's a lot less of us now. I mean, it's 52, it's a big group, but it's smaller than when we started. Does anybody have norming, like their own norming sessions with their review team at their campus? I see Carol says yes.
Do you guys want me to explain it a little bit?
Yeah, Carol, that would be great.
Okay. Well, so just so you know, we had it. We don't have funding right now. I'm still working on getting funding, but how we've done it is we took a number of classes and we took our whole team. Each person that reviewed a course did their review. So we have, one person review, and then I'm the lead, and then I do the final review. So each person took a course, and then we brought all of those courses together with our team of 6 at the time. I think we're 5 now. And they walked us through it and told us how they graded each section, how they rated it. And we agreed or we didn't agree, and we talked through it. It was painstaking, it was time consuming, but it was the best thing we could ever have done because it made us more cohesive, and it helped us to understand what one person was thinking. One person might have said something and we all went, and not quite like this, but oh, no way. We disagree with something. And so we would talk it through, and then that person would go, oh my gosh, I totally see it, or I disagree. And then we just kind of have to, get it to some sort of a conclusion. And we had no trouble doing it. It may have just kind of taken us time. And then now as we do our courses, we are so on the same page. It's amazing. It worked great for us. I tried to implement that at Lake Tahoe. Lindsay and I tried to get them to do the same thing because we are on their poker teams as well. I think it helped, but I'm not sure that us being a little bit more outsider as adjuncts was as helpful as we wanted it to be. But yeah, it worked great for us. And so now when one person says something, we know what they're talking about, and we don't question it because we all understand. So anyway, my 2 cents.
Thanks.
I love all the, sorry. I love all the suggestions that are flying in the chat right now. And I'm wondering if we should maybe create a spreadsheet and have people sort of talk about just briefly describe their process, such as what's going on in the chat right now, because I'm like, we just need to collect all that. So, and then people could add to it if they get one, or if they revise one, or they have one. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, but this is all great.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And thank you, Carol, for sharing that. And yeah, there's, a lot of people some people don't do it, but like want to, and then others that do it, and they're doing great. And I think I just want to say, like, personally, as a poker lead and DE coordinator, and now in this role, with CVC, I think that those local norming sessions are so important because, yeah, we talk about these in a big group and we try to present in like, this is what is meant. And I think that's important, but I know that maybe in your college, the requirement is different. I know that there in some colleges, something it's like, oh no, we want the exemplary, not in the whole rubric, but in this one piece, we want them to do it this way. Donna, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to share that we do a monthly meeting and norming session with our poker team, the majority of whom are adjuncts. And I think it's really important that our adjuncts are paid for that time. They're paid at what's called a support rate, so it's a lesser rate for the meetings, but they're also then paid a lab rate for doing the course shell reviews. So in addition to having that monthly meeting where we talk about lots of other things and we usually do a norming topic, I think it's really important that people are compensated for this extra work. And that helps us tremendously.
Yeah. We hear you, Donna, and I don't think anybody in this group would disagree with, like, and that's one of the challenges when I think of like what if we, have everyone do a local norming session like once a semester. That one of the things I think of is like all of our different compensation models or lack of compensation, that truly is a challenge for a lot of poker stuff. I like Whitney's idea of creating a poker Slack channel.
I was just gonna say that. That's great. There was a question, Leslie. You said, "Are there any in the comments?" What does the there? Are there what? Are there any? What?
Well, if people are doing local poker trainings, I'm wondering if they've created shells to go with that, and if those shells are in the comments.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
And I think, Maria Elena, that's something that we can collect, as you mentioned, like having a shared document that we can collect. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is, let me see, I'm making sure I'm sharing the right slide. Yes, the CVC course design rubric. I do have an update. the update for the CVC course design rubric. So we have gotten the green light to update the course design rubric, and we are working towards getting started on that. So I want to give you guys some information because this group is going to be the group that is most impacted by any changes made to the rubric. I think we can all agree that an update is needed. So, you know, I don't think anybody is like, no, don't update the rubric. It's just like what happens next, right? Like, so first we have to update it. So anyway, these are the things that we're going to be focusing on in this rubric update. So we're going to have to incorporate AI, incorporating guidelines for the ethical and effective use of AI tools in online courses. We're going to update section B more likely, and the work group will decide, but regular substantive interaction, ensuring that the revised rubric strengthens and clarifies standards for instructor-student interaction aligned with federal and accreditation guidelines. So looking at the language, making sure that our language matches all these other things that we have to kind of be checking off. Privacy and security, updating the rubric to address the increasing importance of data privacy and cybersecurity in online education. And then, of course, equity, which is probably the one that is the oldest piece that should have been updated a long time ago, but emphasizing the role of equity in course design to ensure that all students, particularly underserved populations, benefit from high quality online education. So those are the pieces that we're going to be focusing on in this rubric update. There may be other things that get updated, but I'm going to encourage the work group to focus on these because I don't want a total rehaul of the rubric. I don't think that's in anyone's like interest. I don't think it's not going to work out. We just have to focus on these things, and maybe, you know, if there's one or two other things that, you know, the work group really feels that should be changed. But those, I wanted to present those to you. And then I want to share with you the work group, the membership at least. We have not done we don't have any names except for me and Maria Elena that will be in this work group. So this is the makeup of the work group. So we're going to have 2 people from Academic Senate, 2 DE coordinators from DECO, 2 DECO representatives, 2 CIOs, 2 CSOs, an instructional designer / accessibility specialist, 4 POCR leads, and 3 CVC team members. And the CVC team members are me, Marilena, and Garrick. So what we're gonna start recruiting for people. Garrick is the one that's gonna start those efforts. I think a lot of these people in the work group, they'll be recruited through different, like DECO is gonna be one of them, ASCCC, they're gonna give us who should be in this work group. But that's gonna be the makeup of the work group. Let me see.
There's a question about expiration date on current POCR certified courses. That's always a horrifying thought, huh? But maybe we can answer that or not answer that. Yeah.
So I don't foresee expiration dates on current badged courses. Like, I don't think we'll be like, oh, after this day, like, no badge courses, like clean slate, we're starting over because we have a new rubric. We're going to have to figure out what we do to revisit the ones that have been badged. So those are parts of the conversations that are going to come up as this rubric is revised, as well as like, what about training? Like, what about, you know, reviewer training? If the rubric is going to have an equity element, for example, we need to train our reviewers. So those are all conversations that we're going to have, you know, when this work group starts meeting. So these are the deliverables for the work group. And again, it's kind of the same things that I've already mentioned. Addressing AI, RSI, privacy, security, equity. We are going to have listening sessions for this. So just to give you kind of like like what the timeline looks like. So The goal is to get this work group ready and meeting in early January. So right after New Year's, the work group will start meeting. The work group will meet from January to May to make these updates. And then from there, we're going to have listening sessions to share the work group with a wider audience. And then we want to have a period of piloting. So we're going to have to find colleges that want to pilot the rubric, or more like review teams that will pilot the rubric for us and give us feedback. And then the rollout of the rubric will officially happen. And once the rollout of the rubric officially happens, we'll have like all of the other elements squared away, like POCR reviewer training, even some of our @1 courses, having you know, maybe our norming sessions turn into like training session. I don't know, but we'll have all of that figured out because with any change of the rubric, it's like a domino effect. There's so many other pieces that will be affected by this change. So like it says here, field testing with a small cohort, that the goal is fall 2025 for that to happen. So that's the update on the rubric. That probably doesn't answer all of your questions, but hopefully this gives some clarity towards what we're working to happen. And we've also had conversations with Garrick, and the conversation is that after this revision, we're hoping that every year we revisit the rubric to see if there's like any updates that need to be made. And that way it's not like we're waiting 4 or 5 years and it's like, oh, here you go, you know, a rubric with 25%, you know, if the rubric has changed. Here you guys go. Good luck, teams. Like if we have a scheduled, and yearly is just my idea, yearly, like let's revisit, like have things change. Is there something new that's coming up? Is there something that, you know, isn't relevant anymore? Does nobody care about accessibility anymore? Can we take that out? No, that's not going to happen. But, you know, like things like that. So anyhow, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Any questions? Anything else I should address about this?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat that's
okay. All right, so let me move on to tell you guys a little bit about plug and play POCR. So plug and play POCR is another project that Marilyn and I are working on through the CBC. So the goal of plug and play POCR is to create courses that are easily adoptable. So this is a spin-off of, oh my goodness, an independent course alignment, right? So we had in a few years ago, Bob Nash started this independent course alignment. And with independent course alignment, basically it was like when your course was badged, you were asked like, hey, would you like to share this course with like everyone else? And then if you said yes, like you would fill out a form and then your course was available. Like through the Commons, you can get the course as any other faculty member could get the course, you know, so that they could adopt it. So the problem with independent course alignment, it was a good idea, but the problem was that the course was not easily adoptable because like if I was like, yeah, I want to share my course with everyone else, my badge course, well, you were going to have videos with my face on them, you know, everything. It's like the syllabus, the module 0 is Imperial Valley College. So there's a lot of updates. It's not ready to be adopted. So plug and play is going to be, we're going to be creating courses, faculty across the California Community College system. They're going to be taking, not creating, they're going to take an aligned course and adapting it to the plug and play guidelines. So basically the plug and play guidelines are the course has to be aligned with the rubric at the end. All the content, all the assignments will be in the course. The goal is for us to have a module 0 template so that all these courses have the same module 0. There may be some changes depending on the course, like some things added to that module 0, but in essence, the course is ready to be adopted. So there's going to be no I don't, there's gonna, and
No
like,
identifying
you.
information. Yeah,
No
there's no
identified
college
information.
specific. It's basically a very sort of pre-aligned UDL focused, equity focused. It's going to have all of the elements there, except for anything that identifies it to a specific college. Does
Yes.
that help? Okay.
Yes, that's exactly it. So then the course is easily adoptable. Now there will be guidelines for faculty to adopt the course, like, hey, you have to update module 0 with your information. Hey, you know, we do have videos in this course, but we recommend that you create a welcome video every week so that the students see your face, like humanize the course in that way. So there are going to be like these guidelines for people that adopt the course. Leslie?
But do you want to advance the slides? Because
Okay.
I think some of what you're saying is also there too. So
Sochi, can you just explain our emails that went back and forth endlessly? I'm sure they were very annoying, explaining the whole Common Course numbering thing and where that has to be in the process. Because I know I bugged you a lot about that. Sorry.
No. So with Plug and Play, this is our first like group of people that some people are interested in participating in Plug and Play. Like by participating, I mean like adapting one of their courses to the Plug and Play guidelines. And one of the things that we were asking for is like, we want courses that are CID, but preferably we want CCN courses. So like the Common Course Numbering System. So as you probably know, they have released that. I don't know the courses off the top of my head, but I know like our freshman composition course. I think there's political science. So there's a few courses that are
a bunch of others, yeah,
that are going through the Common Course Numbering System. So ideally, we want those courses to be our plug and play courses, because those courses are the ones that we're all going to use across our system. They're going to be more easy to adopt and then put in our personal touches in these courses. So with plug and play, it doesn't have to be a CCN course, but for this first round, we really are trying to focus on CID/CCN. And I know that a lot of colleges are working on CCN still, so there may be some changes in the curriculum. And we understand that. So we just want to get this off the ground and get started with those types of courses. So just to let you know, the courses that we're looking at right now is the freshman composition. There's a communications course out there. We're doing a political science one.
I don't think we haven't really just determined all of the courses yet.
No.
We do have some, so that we're looking at, and they have to go through a review process. So we don't quite know yet how many we'll be working with.
Right. Debbie?
Hi, I was just wondering what the timeline looks like in relation to the rubric updates.
So yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts going on, and like we'll have some plug and play courses, and then we're going to have an updated rubric, and then we're going to have to go back and look at those plug and play courses. So for plug and play, the goal is to have, we're not going to have a whole lot, but have a few courses ready by OTC. So that they're ready to be adoptable, you know, during that time. So that's my timeline. And it's going to, this first round of plug and play, it's going to be a very small amount of courses. But I do want to have, you know, these courses ready for OTC and like announced it at OTC, like, hey, we have these courses. And we understand that as the rubric is updated, those plug and play courses will also have to be possibly updated because of the changes in the rubric. And I know there are two major projects, but we just have to do what we can and move forward, because if not, we'll be waiting and waiting and waiting. One thing I do want to make sure that I mention is, let's say this plug and play project goes off the ground, and yes, in June, I'm able to announce it. I'm like, hey, I have these courses, you know, your faculty can adopt them. And then you start getting people to adopt these courses. if I adopt a course, it doesn't mean that the course is automatically badged. Your college, your review team will have a process to review these courses and badge them. You are the badger of courses. You decide what's badged and what is not badged. Maybe your college decide like, you know what, if it's plug and play, it's a quicker review. Like, you know, but we want to see like if they've added things, we want to make sure that those things are aligned. And again, those things, I am going to work through those and kind of give you guys as POCR leads some guidelines. Like, hey, plug and play courses, they're aligned to everything, but some things to look out for when faculty add video, you know, the accessibility piece of it. I feel like that's going to be the biggest thing, because everything else will be there. That regular, you know, effective contact will be there. The self-assessment that we just talked about. The discussions will be there. But then when they adopt the course and make changes, that's what your team needs to, you know, just do a check. And then you decide like, yes, this is good, we can badge it. So the badging, the course is like essentially created as a badge course, but it doesn't mean that the adopter automatically gets a badge. So I wanted to make that really, really clear. Okay, let me see, what else do I have? So the whole goal of this is to streamline, you know, the design of courses. And I know I have a lot of feelings, you know, about this. Creating a course is not easy. It's not like we cannot make it faster, you know, and that's the feedback we're getting. Like, this takes too long, like make it faster. And it's like, we can't make it faster. So this is just a resource. I cannot imagine us having all the courses plug and play. We're going to have the most common ones. But another reason I think this is important, because this does happen at many of our colleges, where either a veteran faculty member or a new faculty member is told, I need you to teach this class next week. And you haven't taught that class online. And then you're like scrambling. I mean, how many of us have been in that place? So that, right, that is like it's like if there's a plug and play course, you can take it and like you can be like, okay, I'm going to make a few things and I'm just like, here it is. It's there for you. We're not like doing this, like working a week ahead of time to publish that module, because I've done that before and it's like time flies in the online world. It truly does. So that's another thing that we were trying to solve with this plug and play. But the process is new. I do plan on getting people started, the ones that are interested in adapting a course for plug and play for this initial round. I am planning to start also very, very soon. Holidays are coming, so I want to say if not next week, January, but I'm getting really close. I've been working on plug and play for a long time. It's like Maria Elena and I have been like, first it was like an idea and then like it got like bigger and then more and more and more. So, and it'll continue to change as we learn more about it.
Yeah, I think to address Jennifer's comment about the prescription model, one of the things that I think needs to be clarified is that this is not content that cannot be changed. This is content that can be customized, that should be customized, that presents a model that's quote correct in terms of UDL, in terms of accessibility, in terms of how things should be designed, in terms of the elements that we're looking for. But all of those elements can be customized in a lot of different ways. So if I don't like the reading maybe I have a different reading. Maybe I tweak my assignment to maybe do something different, but I'm not changing the template of the assignment per se. I might be changing the assignment content. So I don't want people to feel like this is what we think a comp course should look like, but because I would not like that. I would want to have something that's a shell, like, you know, the little black dress or the little black outfit that I can customize with my own flair. I think that's something that we want to retain, is the for lack of a better metaphor, the flavor of each instructor, or who are we in this course? Where are we in this course? Just because it's there doesn't mean that it can't be mine. But it will have, I think also this could be an opportunity to train our instructors to say, well, why is this a good course? Let's look at these elements. Let's talk about it, because, giving somebody that, but not pairing them with the ID or a mentor might be something at each college. So I don't think we've worked out the process yet, but in terms of how it looks or how we adopt these things, but these are all things to think about as you go through. It's like, yes, have this course,
So
but maybe
what's-
pair somebody with a mentor, in it, or have an ID work alongside that person. Go ahead, Jennifer.
So
I'm sorry.
what's different is, so you're talking about adding content without me, and then having for those templates. So what makes those templates different than those that already exist that do follow the rubric model?
I don't think, I think it's an addition to, I don't think it's a replacement for. So if your college already has great course templates.
No, I mean, the CVC has templates. There's a whole bunch of templates in the
Those are,
in
Jennifer,
Commons.
those are really, really, really old. They were made right before I started back in 2017, and they were not accessible. I'm ashamed my name is even associated with them. So
no, there's some that are, there's those that are new as well.
Oh, not aware of those.
There's a bunch in there.
Can you share the URL?
I was going to say, I don't know if they're CVC, but they could be. I haven't checked that, but I don't know. But the idea of this, I think someone mentioned OER, someone mentioned other things, and for me, starting with a base of either an OER and a base that's UDL already, just takes that burden, one more burden off the shoulders of the instructor who's trying to teach the course and be engaged in the course. So that's, for me, that's my personal feeling.
And one thing that was shared in the chat is that, like, no, you don't have to use these, you can, they're a resource. And I think they can work as a resource in many ways. And another thing is, if let's say you have the brand new faculty member that's like, oh, I want to teach online and here's the course, then, your college could have, hopefully does have, a process. Like, I see that you have the course. I know that this course is aligned, but you still have to take this professional development before you teach any course, like whether it's the one that you adopted from the CVC or one that you create. So I think having those college guidelines, it's going to strengthen this. So I know it's not for everyone. Like, this idea is not for everyone, and I totally understand. We truly are just trying to find just more ways of putting resources out there for alleviating, in some cases, when it's like, I need this now, or just having a good sample of and it's going to be a fully complete course as far as the content goes, assignments, lectures, videos, things like that. That's going to be what's fully complete. But then it's going to be like the strong encouragement of, besides module 0, put yourself in that course. So, but more of that to come. So lastly, because we're running out of time, believe it or not. So reminders, the course design rubric revision is coming up. Plug and play poker is coming up. That'll be in the works. Poker course registration. If you're a poker lead, you should have received an email with the upcoming poker courses in the spring that your faculty can enroll. Like, if you want new reviewers, share that with them. If you've lost that email, again, shoot me an email or support@cvc.edu. It'll come to me. The norming sessions are recorded. Currently, they just live in a YouTube library. This QR code should take you there, but if you need them later, again, just send me an email or a CVC email. And Maria Elena has shared the survey. We appreciate your feedback. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. And lastly, our next norming session is March 13th, always from 10 to 12. I thank you. We thank you so much for being here. We know that your time is valuable and precious. So hopefully this was enlightening. Hopefully it was productive conversation, because that really is the goal. Like, I don't want to fill 2 hours up just because I have to, because we don't, but thank you so much for all being here. And I wish everyone a good winter break, as long or as short as that may be. I hope that you do get away from your computers and just enjoy time on your own, time with your family. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this group. So thank you so much for being here.